I haven't made one of these in a while, but I really wanted to make a video on the last episode of season 4, but also season 4 in general. But I'm not going to go through every episode, I'm just going to go through the finale. Um, I'm going to call this like the most realistic episode of TV I've ever watched. Um, I'm also going to use the word the most naturalistic episode of TV I've ever watched. Um, hey, this came out on my birthday. Oh, literally my birthday. This is the day I was born. Wow, that's weird. Okay. So I just watched this and it was a really amazing end to my favorite season of the show. I'm now on season 5, episode 1. The like 4 episodes that preceded it, I was like locked in, um engaged, like masterpiece level filmmaking slash TV making. And just all through the season, it was like the classic Sopranos writing style with the anticipation and the, drawn out sort of plots, great dialogue writing, humor, everything, direction, everything's on its top game. And of course, a lot of these are really, really underrated because, as we know, everything today is just rating inflated for many reasons, but mainly because after 2020, like, everybody just had lower standards and people don't watch as much. And so a lot of things just are rated highly for no reason. But overall, it's rated really high, but the individual episodes are underrated. This was one of my favorites, even though it's 7.7. So yeah, why do I say this is the most realistic? Well, number one, it caught me by surprise. I thought this was kind of a lame episode for the first 20 minutes. I was like, it kind of just seems like anticlimactic, but it really twisted it on me, and it turned what I thought was kind of a sweet, like, not the best episode, but it turned it into a culmination of all the plot elements that were going on this season. Tony continuing to cheat, but also Carmela and her romance that never happened with Furio, which essentially she was very close to acting on this love she had for one of Tony's guys. Um, and she stopped herself. And then he left to Italy because he knew what was going to happen. He couldn't control himself around her, so he went back home. And then one of Tony's mistresses calls their house, and Carmela finds out about it. And well, let me just get into the synopsis. Tony is surprised, though not displeased, when Johnny Sacrimoni suggests that eliminating Carmine may be the best way to resolve the differences between the two families. A plan of action is set in motion, but interrupted when Carmine suddenly becomes flexible. Money is tight with the Espeland site shut down, but Tony decides to make an offer on a seaside property. Even Carmela smiles for the first time in ages when she sees the house because she's so depressed about Furio leaving and her sort of lost opportunity. However, like I said, one of Tony's mistresses called the house. And it's just everything that happens from here on out really felt extremely realistic to me because I grew up with a lot of marital fighting when I was a child, and it really, really, really felt real to me. It felt exactly how I remembered it. I had never seen it so perfectly made ever in my life. Um, the only other time that I thought it was similar was Sharon Stone and Casino with Robert De Niro. But this kind of blows that out of the water. This was so real. It was so accurate. Um, the acting was out of this world. It was like Edie Falco next level performance, and James Gandolfini great as always. And yeah, basically Tony and them fight, and what I really like about the fighting is it felt like both sides had some points. Obviously Tony's in the wrong, but also he does bring up a lot of good points about Carmela's personality, and a lot of the things she does that put stress on the marriage. And then, he has to go to his vacation house and, like, stay there. But then he's like, no, I'm going back home because I pay all the bills. It's my house. She doesn't have a right to kick me out. He goes and lives in the movie theater. And then his son, AJ, goes and says, Dad, can I stay with you? Because mom's just bitching all the time. And I really like this scene because Tony, like, says, like, no, you have to be nice to your mother, which I love. I love an anti-hero. I really do. I always fall for an anti-hero because I love when a seemingly evil person has, deep rooted good. Like Anakin Skywalker / Darth Vader is the ultimate example. Barry Lyndon, although I wouldn't say he's evil, but he certainly does a lot of selfish things. But as that movie goes on, you see that he has a lot to give as a human being, and he's not just like out for himself. But I've always been into the anti-heroes. There's so many other ones. I'm just listing a few. So yeah, this was a nice scene because I just love those scenes where it's Tony, like, having that relationship with his children and seeing that they really do love him, because it seems very dysfunctional most of the time, but it's nice to see that they actually care about him. And there's a great fight in the movie theater where all that build up, the entire season of her thirsting over Furio, so brilliantly she admits it in front of him. She tells him to his face that, like, you've been cheating on me this whole time, but you never thought that I would ever think about doing it with someone else, but I didn't betray you. And that drives him into a rage, and he, punches a hole in the wall like 5 times. And then a beautiful scene that brought tears to my eyes, when Tony says that it's better if he leaves the house. And, the kids cry, they hug him. Carmela's kind of emotionless. But it's really... Oh, and of course, it ends somewhat comedically with this sort of lesser plot where Tony has to recover the deposit that for this beach house he kind of bought for Carmela. He's basically like harassing the guy that owns the house. He's put a boat in front of his house with speakers, and he's playing loud music so they can't sleep, intimidating them to give him the deposit back. Well, yeah, and Uncle Junior's trial is a mistrial, so he is free for now. And it's the perfect episode of TV. I think this is like a 9.9 maybe. I think it's close to a 10. I would say the first 20 minutes I felt a little bit different than the normal Sopranos episode. It felt a little bit off, but it kind of was trying to subvert expectations. I realized as it went on. But yeah, it's the show overall is just a masterpiece of different emotions, humor, sadness, happiness, strength. I don't know if that's an emotion, but endurance, I guess, is the correct word. And then it's just perfectly directed and acted, and you just lose yourself in this family and this world. Jerry Seinfeld said something where he said TV/movies isn't about the characters, it's about the place. And while I think he was exaggerating a little bit, we want great characters, but I think he makes a valid point. The place is very important. And what I mean by place is like the universe. The Sopranos universe, the state they live in, that construction that they've created for the show, you want to be with those people. You feel comfortable around those people. They feel real. It's like, also like, think of big franchises. Star Wars, you want to be with them. Harry Potter, you want to be with them in their world. Lord of the Rings, I think Indiana Jones too, but to a lesser extent. The place is very important in cinema. If you can get your audience invested, in the place, I feel like you got a home run. Because we're talking about Harry Potter, for instance, or Star Wars, how many like sci-fis are there with probably good characters? Or how many fantasies are there with probably good characters? But how many of those stories and those franchises have places that the audience legitimately would trade their life to go? I would say very few. And just like that, The Sopranos has created a place, a family, where you really feel that it's so real, and yet you want to be with those people in real life. You kind of feel like you know their family, like you know Carmela Soprano, you know AJ and Meadow, you know Tony Soprano, you know Christopher Moltisanti, etc. And it's just a lovely show, and I'm really enjoying it. And I really enjoyed season 4. I think it was my favorite season. I gotta rewatch this show because it's so rich. The amount of metaphors in this show blows the mind. It's so well written and powerful. And it really left it on quite a good cliffhanger with the therapist, where he calls her but doesn't talk to her and just hangs up. Like, I'm so excited to see the next episode of the show. I want to see him talk to the therapist. What does he say? Because he left and said, "Oh, my life's great," and then, a couple episodes later, his whole marriage is falling apart, everything's going to hell. What is he going to say? And we still have not had, spoiler alert, this is a really, really good episode, very dark. The episode where she gets raped was one of the most powerful episodes of TV I've ever seen. Extremely disturbing. But she basically admits that she wants to tell Tony because she wants to have revenge on her rapist that got away. I don't want to get into how she got away, but it was basically like a police error where he had some legal way of not getting tried. I don't remember the exact thing, but obviously it wasn't just made up. It made a lot of sense. But this is still hanging. Like, they haven't resolved this. And I really feel they're going to, because it feels really important to me. Is she gonna tell him that she got raped by this guy and he got away? And she basically wants to tell him because she knows she can have the ultimate power over, the man that overpowered her. The ultimate power of revenge. So there's all that going on, and I'm just so excited for season 5. And you know, it's nice to watch a show where you know it doesn't like end shit, because so many great shows like Game of Thrones are like, oh yeah, it was great, and then the last episode was like the worst thing I've ever seen. Not that I think that, but you know, I think it was a lot worse than it should be. But like so many shows have this story where they're great and then the last season are terrible. But it's great to see that this one ends on a good note. And yeah, I'll probably talk about the show when it's all done. Thank you and goodbye.